Everyone raves about Notion, but when you use it, nothing connects, you get lost, and you're more frustrated than productive. Where are all those benefits that everyone keeps talking about? I know, because I've been there too. As a project manager, my day was full of tasks, scattered tools, lost ideas, and projects that desperately needed structure. I tried using Notion, but at first I only managed to create more chaos. It's no coincidence that companies like Figma, Volvo, Toyota, or OpenAI choose Notion as their main platform for team collaboration. Notion isn't just a tool, it's a system, and once you master it, it becomes your digital brain. It lets you build systems at your own pace, from simple lists to complex control dashboards. Think better, with more clarity, everything connected, visual, and intuitive. And it also helps you save time and consolidate tools. Say goodbye to Excel, Word, Notes, SharePoint, Trello, and those 10,000 open tabs. This doesn't happen by magic. If you don't know where to start, Notion can become a nightmare of blocks, empty databases, and meaningless pages. That's why I created this training, to help you build your first functional workspace, take databases to their full potential, and optimize the process with smart templates. Build your own custom collaborative management tool, turn your space into a powerful website without writing a single line of code, and use Notion AI to save hours of work every week. All this with real examples, practical worksheets, ready-to-use lists, and exercises you can apply from day one. With this training, you'll join the 1% of users who truly master Notion. You won't just get a simple collection of blocks or a theoretical demo here. Here, you'll learn to use Notion like a true project manager, with strategic vision, mental order, and a practical focus. And so you can start today without fear. Remember, you have a 30-day satisfaction guarantee, no pressure, no risk. I'm Rebecca Ramos, a project manager with 7 years of experience, 4 as a product manager and 2 as a product owner for digital platforms in multinational companies. I use Notion every day to save time, be more productive, and create systems that save me hours each week, both at work and in my personal life. And after training hundreds of people in organization and productivity, I'm here to help you too. Ready to stop improvising and start building a system that actually works? I'll see you in the first lesson.
Well, now you're inside Notion and I can show you the different elements you can find here. To start, up here, you have your account. Then right below that, you'll find search. Here you can search for all the different pages you have within your Notion. The third part would be Notion AI, and this is a collaboration with OpenAI, the group that made ChatGPT. Basically, here you can talk to your smart tool, and here you can ask it questions, or you can ask it to help you work in a more efficient way within Notion. I'll show you a bit later everything you can do with this. Then you have the home inbox, where you have all the recently explored pages. You can see your Notion calendar, and in the same way you can see tools like, for example, how I can optimize Notion, some templates, and some courses. Here you have some templates, which are pages that already exist and that you can simply reuse. Then you have your inbox, and this is where you'll have all the information from. For example, if you're collaborating with someone, here, well, all the notifications will reach you. And in the same way, if you set some reminders for yourself, you'll be able to find them here. Then you have 2 spaces. You have workspace and private. Workspace is a place where you're going to have all the pages that you were able to share with people. And then you have private, which is where by default, you're going where the pages are going to be created. Then you have settings, which will be for managing your account and templates and your trash. In the same way, down here you have Notion Mail and Notion Calendar. Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to create a page in Notion and how you can customize it. So let's take a look at my screen. Well, here we are inside my Notion. And then you can see that when you're in Workspace or in Private, you have the option to click here to add a page. So here we're going to add a new page. You have a blank page where you can put a title right here. For today's exercise, we're going to make a recipe page. So I'm going to put the name of my recipe here. So we're going to make a recipe for ratatouille. And here, as you can see, you can start writing directly. Simply, you can just start writing, for example, ingredients and steps to follow, for example. In the same way, here you can see that you can add an icon for this page and you can add a cover. So let's start with the icon. It's super easy. You can choose either an emoji, an icon, or you can upload your own. So I'm going to use an emoji here, and I'm going to use the female chef. Then I can add a cover. So this is the image you have back here. So here I can change the cover image, and you're going to have different options. You can start with the gallery you already have here, which Notion has predefined. Similarly, you can put a link, or you can use an image from Unsplash, which is an integration that Notion already has with this page. So for example, here I'm going to search for a recipe image. And for example, well, this one looks nice to me. So I'm going to use this, and I just click on it and I can use the image now. You can also reposition it. And for example, I like this part of the image better. And this will be the cover of my recipe. Now, if we go back to the body, to what you're going to write here, well, here, as you could see, we use normal text. What's interesting here is that you can either change it. So if you click on the 6 buttons, on the 6 dots, here you have different options. Either you can comment, suggest, you can ask the AI to help you write the text. In this case, what I would like to do is convert it into something else. So right now we're in basic text, but I'm going to change it to a heading 1. In the same way, I'm going to do the same for the other one. So here I can convert it into a heading 1. Another interesting thing for you to know is that with the option of putting the hash, it's a shortcut to be able to write directly in the format you want. So for example, here I'm going to write directly in an H1 format. But if I had written 2, for instance, let us say, it gives me an H2 format here. And I can also do that to put it in 3 hashtags. I hit space, and here I have an H3 text type. Well, those are some little shortcuts for you, so you can know how to use this page. Let's delete this. So here I can delete this part. And within the ingredients, I can start writing everything I need here. So here we're going to put ingredients. Let's put, for example, a carrot. I need tomatoes and also onion for my cooking that I am preparing. Oil, chili, and zucchini, for example. So every time I'm going to start a new line, I just hit enter. And then it creates a new line as if we were on any other platform. Zucchini. Then here, if I wanted to, for example, make a modification, let's say, for instance, I would like to change this to a list. So again, I selected all the text and then I clicked on the 6 buttons. And here in Share, you have different options. So here, as you can see, you can make this into a page, you can make this into a bulleted list, numbered list, to-do list, toggle list, and other interesting things. So for me, I'd like this to be a to-do list. So when I go to the store, I can check off what I'm buying. So here you have it, and then each one, every time you have this ingredient, you can check it off and it'll be crossed out. Next, I'd like this part, these steps to follow, to be right next to ingredients. So you'll see that it's super easy. And this is the first notion of blocks that I'm going to explain to you. Each of the sections you have here is a block. So here I'm going to come, and instead of clicking to get the menu of the different options I can do, this time I'm going to drag it. So here you can see that, for example, if I move it, it will position itself in different places. So what I'll do here is put it next to ingredients. And here I have steps to follow. So when I'm in steps to follow, I can start writing here. So for example, this time it's a situation where I want to have an ordered list. So I'm going to put numbers. Then again, I click on the little buttons, select turn into, and then numbered list. And here I can start writing the different elements. Cut the vegetables. In a saucepan. Hot. Carefully add the oil. Now carefully add the vegetables into the pan. Season with salt and pepper. Let's cook now. 20 minutes. And take your time to enjoy your drink while it is still hot and comforting. Here, for example, what I want to do is I want this text to be right under ingredients. So in the same way, I'm going to select everything and drag it to the ingredients part. And then here I already have my two texts, one next to the other. When you click on a text, here you have other types of functions. Sometimes it groups with what you have, what I was showing you before. But this is more like to see the style of how you want this text. So for example here, again, you can easily change the type or style of text you have. You can, in exactly the same way, do it with text, making it bold, italic, underlined, or applying different and interesting things. And then, for example, I would like to have a color with a yellow background, for example. So here you have, well, the text was highlighted with yellow. Another interesting thing you can know is that, for example, when we go back here to the dots and here in color, you can change the block background. So instead of having only the text in yellow, now I can put the whole block in yellow. Like that. You have ingredients. I'll do the same with this one. Steps to follow, yellow background. And that way I have both things well highlighted and I can understand what I can do here. So, well, this is a small demonstration of how to create a super simple page and a small preview of what we're going to start seeing in all these classes we have ahead. Hi, now I'm going to explain what a block is. In Notion, almost everything you see on a page is a block. A block is a basic unit, and this can be anything from a paragraph of text, an image, a table, a to-do list, or even an entire database. The best thing about blocks is that you can move, organize, and customize them easily to create dynamic and well-structured pages. Now that you know what a block is, let's explore the different types that exist in Notion. Notion offers you 6 types of blocks to help you organize your pages. Let's start with number 1, which are the classic blocks. Classic blocks are what you use most often, and they're truly the simplest ones available. So, among the classic blocks, you'll find text, headings, H1, H2, H3, bulleted or numbered lists, like, for example, the one you have right here, and the to-do list with checkboxes to mark off. I'll show you when I convert this into a to-do list. And once you've done it, visited it, for example. An item, you can go ahead and mark them as done. Then there's the second type, which are databases. Databases in Notion are extremely useful for organizing information. You can use them as tables, lists, Kanban-style boards, calendars, or galleries. They're ideal for managing projects, tracking tasks, and even cataloging products. For example, here, this is a gallery-style database. So it allows you to regroup it and view it in different ways. Then we have the third type, which would be media. So here it would be everything you can add, like images, videos, files, even audio. For example, if we go in here, I added an image of the Mona Lisa, and this is a block, just the same. Number 4 would be embeds, integrated elements. With embeds, you can insert content from other platforms like Google Drive, Figma, Twitter, YouTube, Google Maps, things like that. So, for example, here I'll show you how I added a Google Maps map inside my page, like this. Everything is grouped within your same page, and you don't have to leave to go find information. And then finally, we have the blocks. At number 5, we have advanced blocks, which are tables of contents, callouts, which are for highlighting important information with a colored background, code blocks, which are ideal for programmers, and then we have the inline options, which I wouldn't say are blocks, but rather something you can do to modify the blocks you already have. So when you're inside a block, for example, a text block, here's how you can modify it. So here we can add bold, underline, or italics. You can also insert links within the text, and you can also mention pages or other people. For example, here if I type at Yassine, I can invite him to the page. And in the same way, I can put, for example, a date or a time to have a reminder. And that's everything you need to know about blocks in Notion. As you can see, each type has its function, and together they allow you to create flexible and organized pages. In the next video, we'll continue exploring more tools to enhance your use of Notion. See you there.
Hi, in this video, I'm going to show you how you can add media, images, and audio to your Notion page. So let's look at my screen. Well, here on my screen, I'll show you as an example how to make a page for French classes where we'll add all of these elements. Number one, we're going to start by giving this page a little bit of style. As you can see, I have my title, but then I'd like to add an icon. So let's look for something that's more related to our topic. In the same way, we're going to add a cover. So this one, well, I don't like it much. Let's change it. And here, for example, on Unsplash, I'm going to look for one that has to do with France. Well, I'll put Paris. Let's see, perfect. Now I feel much more inspired and we can keep moving forward. As you can see here, I've added a callout block. To show you how it's done well, you just turn your block into a callout. And here you have a block that can show you like the quote. And it'll be like that for me to remember why I'm taking these French classes. Next, we have French verb conjugation here. Here I'll show you, number one, how to make this heading a title. So I'll put it in heading 2. And then, well, here I feel like putting an image. So you have different options on how to do it. The simplest way is, well, you have your image. For example, I found this one on a website with all the French verbs. So I just click copy image. And here, well, I hit Control V and the image appears here. Then you can make the image either smaller or larger, however you want. This for me is the easiest way to be able to paste an image, but it's not the only one. So I'm going to show you how you can do the other options. Number one, you can come here and put the slash. And here it gives you suggestions of what type of blocks you can add. So we want to put an image. So here I typed image and this appears. Then you have different options for how you can add an image, whether it's something you already have on your computer and you can upload the file. You can insert a link or you can add an image from Unsplash, just like we did for the cover. You can simply search here in this database of images that are free to use. Or on another platform, which would be Giphy, to put a GIF. Now you know how to add an image. What's also interesting is that it already leaves the image block here, so you just have to click and you can add it. So, well, I'm not interested in this anymore. I'm going to delete it. But I already have my French verb conjugation image right here. Now we're going to do the homework. So here, in the homework section, we'll turn this into heading number 2, just like we have it here. And then, well, here I have my homework for day 1 and day 2. I want to turn this into a to-do list. So I'm going to add it here so that once I finish this, I can mark it as done. So I'll do the same for day 2. I'll turn it into a to-do list. And now when I finish the task, I'll be able to mark it as done. For day 1, I want to practice with a YouTube video. So in the same way, you can do the same things we just did. So for example, here I have a YouTube video that explains how to learn to say some very basic words in the language. So what I can do is do a Control V, Control C of the link we have. So for example, here I pasted the YouTube link. And here you have different options for how you can place this link. Either you use it as a mention where you just have the link here and you can click on it and it redirects you to the page. Embed video, which would mean the video is inside your Notion page. And that's what we want because this way I don't have to leave my Notion page to view my tasks and do my videos. So here, this is the option that seems most convenient to me. So I'm going to close. I'm going to delete this one because it doesn't look right. But I'm going to put it in and I'll put it right under day 1. That way I can have it, well, on day 1. Well, I have my video here. Now let's say that for day 2, I have a podcast to listen to instead, because I want to learn more vocabulary. So in the same way, we'll do the same thing. Here I go to Deezer, and let's say I want this podcast to be the one I'll have to do on day 2. So here you can simply click the share button and it will provide you with a link which you can use in exactly the same way. Just copy and paste it wherever you need. Here you can also choose how you want to share it, whether you want to use a mention, a URL, a bookmark, or an embed. Each of these options gives you a slightly different way to share the content, depending on what works best for your needs. And as we said, I want everything to be on the same page, so I'll just click embed. Now, here, as you can see, when I watch this video, with those can-do videos, you'll see real-life situations. The video is viewed directly within my Notion page, so I don't have to leave it. The same thing happens with my music from Deezer as well. And that's how you have a page where you have the media embedded, so you don't have to go look for them on other websites, and you already have your perfect page for your very first day of work to learn the French language. Thanks. See you in the next video. If you are or work with developers, you know the importance of having good documentation, less time searching for code, and more time programming, right? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you how you can create documentation for developers and how you can add coding blocks within your Notion page. Let's see my screen. Well, here I'm going to show you an example of how you can use Notion as documentation for developers. So let's start, well, with a blank page, and then here you can add a new block, which will be a code block. So there you have it. Here at the top, you can choose the language you're using for your code, and Notion supports up to 60 different types of languages. So it's super interesting. So here, for example, I'm going to copy my code, and depending on the language I select, you'll see how Notion will put different elements in different colors that are relevant to that language. Let's say that you're working in a PHP, and in the same way, I'll show you how it changes. When I select, for example, this is an SQL, which stands for Structured Query Language, or for example, simply here we are with a slightly more common programming language, such as JavaScript, which is widely used for web development. So there you go. Notion is not only a tool for managing projects, but it's a very interesting tool when you work with developers. I hope this video has been useful to you. See you in the next one. Hi, in this video, I'm going to show you automations and how you can use them for your work or for your personal life. I'll show you my screen now. Well, in this exercise, we're going to make a journal with a button where every time you click the button, a new entry for this journal will be added. But this can be super interesting in the same way. For example, when something, for example, you click the button, you want an email to be sent with a template, or you want to send a message on Slack or things like that. I'm going to show you everything you can do. So, as you already know, well, we start with a blank page. You already know how to customize it with its cover image and with its icon and its title. And well, now we're going to start by adding the button. The first step will be, as always, we use the slash, and then here you have all the options you can have. So here we type button, and here it shows us this result. So this means that every time I press the button, there's going to be an action that will be done on the page or somewhere else. Let's discover together all the options you have, and then we'll do it for our journal. You can, as you can see here, you can make blocks. You can add a page to different projects. You can edit pages in the same way. You can send notifications to someone. You can send emails, send a webhook, ask for a confirmation, open other pages or URLs, or in the same way, send a Slack notification to someone. So now we're just going to stick with something quite simple. So we're going to make it so that when you press the button, I want, well, a block to open. So it will be the first one, insert blocks. And here you have different options. So what I want to do here is that when a block is created, I want it to tell me the date we're at now. So for that, I'm going to use the @ symbol concept. The @ symbol allows you to mention people, but in the same way, it allows you to put dates. So now I'm going to put, I want it to mark today's date. That is the day I'm making my entry. And for example, I'm going to put, well, things I've done today. And well, we have it ready like this. Now, every time you use this button, so here we click on button, the date appears, that is today appears, but tomorrow, well, if I click, tomorrow's date will appear and the mention of things I did today. So now I can start writing, for example, well, I went for a run. And then I had a nice coffee. Well, this video showed you one way you can use automations in Notion. And here, with a very simple exercise, you can create a button to be able to enter information on a Notion page. See you in the next video. Hi, in this second part, we're going to talk about databases. Databases are what allow you to organize your information in Notion efficiently. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can use them, how they work, and how they can help you with your work. Let's start with the first thing. What is a database? A database is more than just a simple board. It's a way to visualize information, and this can be done in different ways, whether it's tables, Kanban boards, calendars, lists, and much more. What's super interesting is that a database can be shared across different spaces in Notion. That way, your information will be synchronized at all times. I'm going to show you how to create one. So yeah, as you can see on my screen here, we have a new page and we're going to add a database block. As you already know, we add the slash and then here we're going to type base. Here you have the different options for the databases that you can have. So you have two options here first. Either you make an inline database or you make a new page. This means if you want to have the information within the same page you have now, or if you want to have a link to another page where you'll have your database. Personally, right now, what I want to show you is an inline database. So that's what we're going to choose. Then it's going to suggest either creating a new database or adding one that already exists. So in this case, I'm going to add one that already exists. And for example, I'm going to look for one called content planning. This little arrow shows you that it's a database that exists somewhere else and that you're viewing it on this page, meaning you integrated it into this page. So here we have, for example, a database, which is essentially a structured collection of information in which we start with the name field, which would be more like the post that we have to do or create. Then in the second column, we've created one that would be the type of social media, meaning where we want to share this information. And then we have publication date and URL. As you can see, these are different elements that are super interesting for you to see because each of these elements that you have has its own typology. For example, here social media has been set up in a way as if they were tags. Then we have the publication date, which is more like a date from a calendar. And then the URL, well, it's a hyperlink that can be clicked on, allowing you to be sent to the page that you want to see. So this is a database, something super simple so that you can get started. And then in the next videos, we'll see what the different databases we can create are like and the different functions you can do with them.
Hi, in this video, I'm going to show you the different database view options that you have in Notion and how you can use filters and advanced filters. Let's start with the first part. I'll share my screen with you. As you can see here, I've made a small example of the different databases that you can see in Notion. Let's start with the simplest one and the one we've already talked about, which would be the table. This is the one that most resembles an Excel spreadsheet, and what's interesting is that each one of the columns and the information you'll have here will be adapted based on the type of information you're putting in. For example, here it's text, which is a free field, so you can start by writing anything you want here. The second one will be more like a single select element. So for example, here it's the team. So for example, here we have the different teams that are working on these projects. In the third one, we have the status, which will then allow you to choose what stage this task is in. And finally, you have one that would be more of a calendar, and this allows you to choose dates within a calendar. That's for the table. Then we have the board version. A board is something that will allow you to group information within the same category. So for example, this is a content planning board where I can see the different posts, dividing them by social media type: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. And here I can see each of the campaigns that I'm going to do within those social networks. Then we have lists. This is a super easy, super basic way to be able to see all the elements you have within your database. And then you have the timeline. The timeline allows you to see how the project progresses over time to be able to make a Gantt chart or a retro plan. It's super practical for projects. Then we have the calendar version, which will be more like, for example, if you have publication dates and things like that. This will be the most suitable element for you. Finally, we have the gallery. The gallery is a more visual version of seeing what you have. So for example, here I have what I had shown you in the first videos of this course about the different items to visit in the Louvre Museum. So here I can see each of these items with images. And then we have the chart. The chart allows you to quantify, let's say, have a slightly more quantitative evaluation of your database. In the next video, we're going to see how to use the filter version for databases and how you can also group information. So let's say that we are now in the table view. Here, when you hover over it, you'll see that new options appear. So you have the option to filter or to sort. To filter, for example, I want to filter the information by teams. And let's say that here I want to choose, for example, that I only want to see the product team's info. So I click on this, and here I can see only what needs to be done for the product team. In the same way, you can apply several filters. So for example, I can combine the product filter with status, and I just want to see the items that are in progress. So this way I can see that the product team has the packaging creation in progress. This way I can filter the items I'm interested in seeing within a database, and I can also save it for everyone. So for example, if you're in a product meeting, you can have this view very easily and right at your fingertips. Then another very interesting thing you can do is that not only can you filter, but you can also group the information. So if we go back here to the three dots, here you'll have the option to group. So for example, I want to group the information by teams. This now allows me to see for each of the teams, I can see what things they have to do to carry out this project. And then it's very easy for me now to be able to contact each of these teams to tell them what they have to do and to be able to follow up on the work they have to do. In the same way, you can see, for example, if we do this same exercise with the lists. For example, here I've already grouped by status, so you have everything separated. And the same can be done in each of these views that you have here. I hope this video has been useful for you to understand how you can use databases and how you can filter and group information. Hi, in this video, I'm going to share with you what the different tags are that you can put in your database and how these can be interesting for organizing your information. Well, let me share my screen with you. Here we're seeing, for example, a database in table form, which is the one we were making in the previous video. And then, for example, here you have each of the tags. It would be each of the elements you add to enrich the database. So for example, here you have a market research line in which we have the tag, which is the research team that's going to do the work. Then we have the status level to be able to say how the project is progressing. We also have the duration date, and then you can add an infinite number of more tags. So, for example, here we're going to see some of the most common ones that there can be in Notion. You have text in which you can write, for example, a description of the activity. You have a number version, which is like being able to put, as its name indicates, quantitative information. Then you have the selection. Selection is to be able to choose a single element, but you also have multi-select. Status, as we've already shown, the date in the same way. People, this would be to be able to tag a person within Notion. You also have files and media, which allows you to add documentation. Checkboxes that allow you to validate if the stage is already done or not. URL, in situations in which, when you're going to put or insert the link of a web page or website, this feature will allow it to be automatically clickable for the user. You also have the email version available as well, which works in a similar way. This will allow you, for example, if you're doing some type of automatic action in which you say every time this line moves to the done status, send an email to the person who is registered on this line. In the same way, you have the version, you have the phone, you have formulas, relation, which allows you to make a relation with external databases from this page. And then you have others that are a little bit more advanced, like the rollup property, the creation date created by, the last edit, and last edited by. You have button and ID and verification, which is more for business. Well, now that we have this available, now I'd like to take a moment to explain to you in a bit more detail how you can use the formulas version within the database. Well, now I'll show you how calculations are something interesting you can do with your database. Well, now I'm going to show you within this page what the different options are that you can use to calculate in your database. So for example, we are here inside this calculations page. And for example, we're talking about a DAT, a database of marketing expenses for the first quarter. So when you go to the part of the, when you hover over the last line, you'll see an option, calculate. So for example, if you click on it, you can have different options of what to calculate. Count will be knowing how many cells have been used, let's say. So for example, count or count unique values, empty and non-empty cells. Then you have a percentage of cell utilization. So it would be the percentage of empty and non-empty cells. But the most interesting one for me would be more options. Here, since we're currently on a line in which the column was specifically made for numerical values, it gives you several options such as sum, average, median, minimum, maximum, and the range. These options are helpful when you want to perform calculations or analyze the data within that column. For example, what I'm interested in knowing is how much the first quarter will cost me in marketing expenses. Then, for example, now that we have a second column in which we have dates, what's interesting for me here would be to know, for example, what was the date range? That means that I'm taking into account that I'm going to spend this sum of money over this number of months. And then, well, for something that would be more of a type of single select, well, here you can calculate, for example, the number of empty or non-empty cells or a count of how many cells have been used. And there you have it. This is a super simple option to be able to do quite interesting calculations for your project management. Hi, in this video, I'm going to explain how to work with charts in Notion, so I'll share my screen with you. Now you can see a new page on my screen that we're going to use to see the different types of charts you can make in Notion. So let's go ahead and add a database. So we type database, and then here we'll be able to see within the database the different charts you can add. You have vertical bar charts, horizontal bar charts, line charts, and donut charts. Let's start with the vertical bar chart. Let's say that now in this chart, I want to see, for example, the expenses for marketing. And so here it's made a bar chart for me, but it might not be the best fit, let's say, for the information I want to have. So you can always modify it. You just go here to the three dots. So here you can see, number one, you can change the view type. So whether it's a vertical, horizontal line, or donut chart. If we go back to the vertical version, here on the x-axis, we can identify what we want to show. So the truth is that the status isn't something I'm very interested in. I'd rather know, for example, the marketing channel. That way I can know how much I'm spending on each of the social networks. Next, we have the option to sort. So it can be manual, but it can be a count from low to high, high to low, and so on. Let's say that now for the y-axis, I'd like to not see the count, but I'd like to see the cost. So for the cost, I'd like to see, for example, the maximum value. That way I can see how much I spend on print, digital, and radio. You can also group the information. So here it could be, for example, by status. And so we can see a split within each of these categories, which ones are completed, which ones are in progress, and which ones are pending. Well, this is the first chart. Now let's make the same type of chart, but I'd like to see the horizontal bar option. This horizontal bar is quite similar to the other one, so I don't think I'll explain it much, but for example, you have the donut version. The donut chart can be quite interesting to know where you're spending the most within your project. So for example, here. In data to show, I don't want to see the status, but I'd also like to see the marketing channel. Then for each segment, I'd like to see the cost information. So we're going to include the cost in the same way. The color, well, that's a bit more of an aesthetic part. You can choose, for example, to use a range of colors, and then you have other style values, for example, that you'd like to have. Maybe you don't want to show the legend, or you do show it. For example, you can have the name in the data label, which seems a bit more relevant to me. And in the same way, for example, you can have the name and value. This way, you can have all the information super clear. For example, it's spending 1.5 thousand euros. And you're here showing how to do the split between the different marketing channels. I hope this video has been useful for you to see how you can use the charts. As you can see, the databases are super flexible and you can show them in different ways. Depending on whether you're in a presentation where you want to show your project's expenses, or if you're looking for each of your teams at the status of each of the stages.
Hello and welcome to this new Notion course. Now we're going to talk about templates, what they are, their importance in Notion, and how they can save you a lot of work in your day-to-day. Before we get into creating a template, I want to explain what a template is in Notion. A template is a set of pre-configured blocks that you can use on different pages or projects. This allows you to have a structure ready to use and save time and effort. Templates are ideal for organizing any type of recurring task or repetitive process. For example, if you're a student and you have a class, a template would be ideal for taking notes, where you'd have different sections for summaries, homework, and important dates. Now I'm going to show you how you can go about creating a template. So let's take a look at my computer. Well, here we are on a brand new page, so we're going to call this one templates. And for example, right here, I'd like to take a moment to explain, for instance, for user stories with tech teams. This is a really ideal thing because every time you create a new task or user story or action for the developer, it always has the same structure. You always have to complete the same type of information. So to me, it seems like an ideal case. So we're going to call this user stories. As always, we can customize it a bit. And then here we're going to start putting our templates. Templates are made within the database, so we'll do that first. Inline database. And then here it's going to be a new empty database. In this database, you can see here that you have a new button. So when you click here on the tab, you can create a new template. Now you see that you can create your template structure in this new pop-up that's opening. So I want all my user stories to start with as a user. And then you explain when I click on this button, I want such and such to open. So we start initially as a user. And then here you have the opportunity to add properties. For example, I'd like to put the information of which sprint, that is, which week or which work cycle this user story will be worked on. So here we put sprint and leave it as a number because they're sequential sprints. So for example, if we're in sprint 50 right now and I want it to be handled in sprint 52. Another property that I would like to add is the type of user stories. For example, I would like to specify whether it is a bug, whether it is a development improvement, or whether it could be feedback from my clients. So this is what we are going to mark here, the type of user stories. And then here, we're going to be able to add an option. So for example, here we can put bugs, feedback, and we had said, for example, dev improvement. And then we already have this other type of property. So now we're going to add what elements we want to add within the structure of this user story. For example, we can do definition of done. We can add the visuals. And then we can add, for example, technical elements. And well, each one of these items, I would really like for them to be in heading 2. And there you have it. Now we already have this template. When I click outside then, now every time I click on new, you create a new page within your database. And then here you can use the templates that you already have predefined. So I'd like to use the as a user template. And then the page is completed with the elements we already had in the template. So for example, as a user, I want to have a button to access the main database. And then after considering all the relevant factors, I would like this particular task to be handled and addressed in sprint number 55. As for the type of user story, I want to clarify that this is specifically feedback. And then here in this section, I can proceed to complete the different required elements, saying, for example, that the button, when clicked, redirects me to the appropriate page or location, to the database. Then, for example, here, I'll be able to put the visuals and the technical elements. And there you have it. That's how you create a template within Notion. Hi, in this video, I'm going to show you how to use templates to create a habit tracker for your personal life. I'll share my screen. Well, now you can see my screen here. So I'm going to show you how to make a habit tracker that will allow you to track all the habits you want to include in your life. So let's start, as always, by creating a new page with a title, Habit Tracker. And then here we're going to add, for example, an icon. Now inside this page, as you already know and understand, templates can be placed inside databases. So let's start with that, and we're going to create an inline database. In this case, for me, well, let's create a new database. And what I'm interested in seeing is, for example, a calendar, because my habits will be daily and I'd like to be able to see the progress of these different habits every day. So, and now that we have the calendar view, we're going to start making our templates. As always, you have the new button up here and the little tab that lets us create a new template. Within this template, we'll be able to create a habit. Let's say I want to read for 15 minutes every day before going to sleep. So we're going to create this as a new habit. So it would be read 15 minutes. And then, for example, in the elements I'd like to see is the date, where I'd like the date to be whenever I launch this template. Let's say we'll have today's date. Now, I'd like to add an icon, so it'll be much easier for me to recognize this habit when I have it on the calendar. Well, so now we have our template here with read 15 minutes, and now I'd like to customize the design of this a bit more because I feel it doesn't have all the elements I want. Here you can really customize everything you have. So we have the date, but I'd like to, for example, add
a text space where I'll be able to add notes, for example. And then I'd like to add another one where, for example, if I feel like adding files and media, I can do that. So we're going to set it to landscape format. And I want to apply this to all pages. And now you can see that inside your template, you have the date, and then you'll have, for example, a notes space where you can add the elements you want. So here, for example, inside the notes, I'd like to say, so to begin and to start the discussion just a bit, I would like to ask, what book are we talking about? I read today. And also, for example, I can add something else like, what I liked or didn't like. And that's it. Now we have my 15-minute daily reading template ready. Next, for example, let's create another habit tracker. For example, I'd like to drink 1 liter of water daily. So let's go ahead and add an icon to it. Let's put down drink 1 liter of water. Well, daily is implied. For the date, I'd also like it to set to today's date when I activate it. And then, well, I don't need notes or media files, but if I want to add them when I finish, the options are there. And then, for example, let's finish with one more where we'll put go to the gym. And in the same way, as we know, we'll set it to today's date. And for example, in the notes, I'd like to put what type of exercise exactly. And that way I can get inspired to fill out this part. And I almost forgot. Let's go ahead and add my icon, and there you have it. So now when I want to create a new item, I can click on new and choose from one of the 3 options I already have here. So for example, this one is for reading 15 minutes. And let's say that right here, we're going to fill it in. For instance, I recently read The Power of Habit. And what was the thing I liked most was section 2. And then there you go. So for today, a new page has been created for reading for 15 minutes, where I have the information that I just filled out. Let's say that at the same time, I also want to log my daily water intake. I can either click on new directly or select it right here. And then this is already done. So you can see that today I read and drank the liter of water I was supposed to drink. I hope this exercise was helpful for you, and I'll see you in the next section.
Hello! In this section, we're going to discover how Notion can become your best ally for managing projects. Whether you work on your own, in a team, or you're an entrepreneur, having a flexible and visual tool like Notion can make all the difference in how you plan, execute, and track your projects. But first, let's lay the groundwork. What is a project? A project is a set of temporary tasks with a clear objective and a defined time frame. For example, launching a product, organizing an event, designing a marketing campaign, or creating an online course. Project management consists of planning what's going to be done, assigning resources, coordinating the team, tracking progress, and adapting to changes. There are many methodologies for doing this, some traditional, like waterfall management, where each phase depends on the previous one, and others more flexible, like agile methodologies, which allow for quick iteration and adaptation on the fly. Now, the key question, why use Notion for project management when there are so many tools available? The answer is simple. Notion gives you total freedom to build a work system that adapts to you. Unlike other tools that already come structured like Trello, Asana, or ClickUp, Notion is like a blank canvas. You can combine databases, tasks, notes, dashboards, documentation, and all of this in one place. This allows you to have all the project context without having to jump from one app to another. And the best part is that you can customize everything. Want to use a Kanban view? You can. Need a timeline or a prioritized list? That too. Instead of adapting your way of working to a tool, it's the tool that adapts to you. And what kind of projects can you manage with Notion? Practically any kind. You can plan a product launch with phases, owners, and tasks, or track weekly or monthly marketing campaigns. If you're a freelancer, you can organize all your projects by client with deliverables, budgets, and deadlines. You can also build an editorial calendar, coordinate content creation, and if you work in a team, you can align tasks, documentation, meetings, deadlines, all of this in a single space. The important thing is that you decide how that space looks and how it works. As you can see, Notion isn't just a note-taking tool, it's a powerful and flexible system that can help you manage your projects in a clearer, more organized, and effective way. Now that you have an overview, in the next section we're going to get practical. I'm going to show you how to design the project database in Notion from scratch. See you there. Hi, in this video, I'll give you an overview of the structure and key properties of a project. Two key dimensions are combined here. On one hand, the project's strategic context, and on the other, the operational structure that will allow us to track the day-to-day. The idea is that anyone can access this page, a collaborator, a client, or even yourself weeks later, and quickly understand what it's about, why it's important, and how it's progressing. The first part, which is the introduction, needs to be visual and contain the key elements. This can be called a summary sheet or a project one-pager. Here you should introduce the most important elements, such as the project name, the department in charge, who the leader is, the completion date, the teams involved or key stakeholders, the main milestones, and points of attention or potential bottlenecks. This section can be structured however you prefer. The key is for it to be scannable in a few seconds. After the introduction, we're going to dive a bit deeper. What specific need is this project addressing? This part serves to justify why we're investing time, resources, and energy into this work. Here, you can answer questions like, what problem does the company or team have today? What are the consequences if no action is taken? And how does it affect the client, the business, or the team? This section provides context and alignment. It's not about writing a lot, but about clearly explaining the why. This will allow you to make the best decisions as the project progresses, keeping the problem you're trying to solve always clear. And if you're in a company, it'll let you defend your project if you need to weigh it against other project priorities. Now that the problem is clear, let's move to the proposal. How is this project going to improve the status quo? Here you briefly describe what the project consists of, how it's expected to have a positive impact, and you can mention things like the results to be delivered, the processes to be optimized, expected benefits for the company or client, KPIs or key metrics. This block should reinforce the project's purpose and motivate those executing it. Once we are clear on the why and the what, we move on to the how. This is where the task or deliverables database comes in. This will be the project's dynamic timeline where you can plan and track progress. Here you'll have a database with the following key properties: the task or deliverable name, status, person responsible, start date and deadline, priority, progress or stage, category or client or task type, notes or key deliverables. You can present this database in different views, such as a table, a Kanban board, a timeline, or a calendar, depending on the project stage. Remember, the key is for everyone to see what's assigned to them, understand what's next, and know the status of everything. As you can see, in Notion, we don't just manage tasks. We structure project information from the initial context all the way to execution. In the next video, I'll show you how to create this page step by step. Hi, in this video, I'm going to show you how you can make a page to manage your projects. So I'll share my screen with you. As you know, we start with a new page where we're going to put a title. I'm going to give you an example where I'm creating a website and I'm leading my teams. And this will be my project management page. Well, now we're going to start putting the main sections we have on our page. So here I'm going to explain a bit what each of them means. The first one will be a one-pager. This is where we'll have all the key information for our project. Then we have the answers to the big questions you'll be asked. What are we solving with this project? What are we gaining? What is the problem? What will we get? In other words, what would be the solution in this case? If we do the project, well, what are we going to gain? And how do we do it? Which is the operational part of your project. For the one-pager, I like to put the following elements such as the project name, the department responsible, the project leader, the estimated completion date, when you'll deliver it, the teams involved, what your milestones are, that is, what the key moments are that people have to validate, and then the possible problems you might encounter along the way and points of attention so you can anticipate problems that might come up later. In the section on what we solve, it's important to talk about the problem we have now and why you're going to put time, money, and resources into doing this project. In my case, for example, I'm going to say that my company doesn't have an e-commerce site and we're losing visibility, market share, and sales. So that's what I'm going to put here. And regarding what we'll get, well, this is the result if we're doing the project and what our objectives or metrics are. So for example, here I'm going to say that we have a vision of a market share and also a financial vision of how much we want to earn thanks to this new e-commerce site. And then in the last part of how we do it, this is the real operational part, and it's really going to be your ally throughout the project management. So here we'll add a database. You have the option to make a new database, or we're going to build it together now so I can show you how it's done. So we're going to start obviously with the first column in which we're going to have what the different missions are that everyone has to do. Then you can put the status. This is super important to know what's already been done, what's in progress, and what still needs to be done. Then you can put either a person or you can put a team. So for example, I'm going to do team. And I'm going to call it, instead of select, I'll put team. Then we're going to give it a delivery date or duration of the mission. And then I'm going to add another section where I can select, and this will represent the stage of the project we're currently in. So let's go ahead and name this stage. Similarly, it might be useful to have a place here where you can add some notes. That way, you can quickly and easily see any important information or details that need to be visible from this view. Then you can also add files and different types of media, which will allow you to conveniently attach documents, images, or other relevant files, so you can always see exactly where the files for all your tasks are located and organized. And now let's start filling it all in. For example, we can start here with the definition of objectives. You see that, for instance, the not started status is applied automatically. And then you can specify, for example, which team we're talking about. And this is going to be the marketing team who will be in charge of this. And for the date, let's say we're going to start this next week. And this task is part of the strategy and preparation stage. So now I'm going to finish filling in the next few tasks, and I'll see you in a second. Well, as you can see now, I've finished my database with all the elements like who the team is, the dates, and what stage each of these tasks is currently in. Now you can start, for example, by marking this one as completed, saying, for instance, that this is in progress, that this is done, and so on. Now what I want to show you is how we can make this page a bit more interesting. One technique I always use is the full width setting, which gives you a much wider page. And now, as you can see, we can start playing around with the layout a bit more. For example, I'd like this information on what we solve and what we gain to be side by side. So let's place this here, along with its two indicators right underneath. And these go right below this one. I'd like to add a chart right next to my one-pager so I can track the project's progress. So we're going to add a new block, which will be a database. And it's going to look just like a chart. And then right here, I'll select the database that I want to visualize. So I'll select here and here. As you can clearly see, I currently have a total of 13 tasks in all, where one of them is in progress, 2 of them have already been completed, and the rest are ones that I have not yet started. Then, in order to have it right next to it, Well, actually, I just need to place it directly beside my information here on the one-pager. And now I just have to move this back up so that everything is aligned. So there you have it. This is your project management page, and it will be super easy to identify how the project is going, who the people involved are, and how long it will take to be ready. Hi, now that I've shown you how to create a page to track your projects, I'll show you how to adapt it to different types of projects you might have. So let's go back to our website launch page. And now, since you already have a database, I'll show you how to display it in different ways. Now, let's imagine you want to see the same database you created, but in a different way, more like a chronological format. So of course you can do that. Here in the database, we have a view called the timeline view. And so here we're going to call up the database you already built. So we're going to put the name of our database in this space, which is website launch. And now, as you can see, each of the tasks you have above can now be seen in a chronological way. You can customize this view. And so here, for example, you can click on Edit. You can show different types of properties. For example, you might want the team name to be visible. So for example, here you see each of the tasks with its team. And also, for example, you might want to see the status. So here you can see now if it's in progress, not started, or if it's finished. To me, it seems like you already have the date. It's not relevant, but it could be interesting to see if you have elements such as media or documents that you have personally added to this database. Then you can filter like any other type of database. So for example, here you can filter only the items that the marketing team has to do. So that's all there is to it. You can save this view for everyone, or we'll just delete it. And then another interesting thing about this way of viewing databases is that here you can create dependencies between one task and another. And that's the little button you see here where you're indicating that this task depends. It has to be finished so that the other one can start. So, for example, in this case, choosing a platform is something you have to do first before starting your integrations. And so I set my dependency, and as you can see here, the date moved because you have to have finished the previous task to be able to start this one. So it's a super interesting way for you, once you've created this, set your dates and said, I'd like to do it at this time for whatever reason. When you're in these types of views, you really tell yourself, well, this task has to be finished before I can start the next one. This is something that lets you visualize if your project is well planned and if you've considered all the elements you need to consider. So this is the first type of view you can have, the chronological form, but it's not the only one. Now let's say that, for example, you'd rather see those tasks, but divided into what's to be done, what's being done, and what's already finished. So this is more of a Kanban view, which is one of the methodologies used in the Agile way. So here we're going to search again in database, and we're going to see the board list. So as you can see, it's already preset with what hasn't been done, what's in progress, and what's been finalized. And we're going to put, as always, our website launch database. And then here you have the same tasks you have up here. They're regrouped by the state and the status they're in. I like to customize it, and for example here you can edit and it's already grouped by status, but I'd like to add a subgroup. So if we do this, subgroups, here we can say, for example, I want to divide it by teams. So as you can see now, you can see what the business tasks are. The status of those tasks, the legal team, the marketing team, the tech team.
This can be super interesting to be able to identify, for example, if the marketing team is behind or, for example, has many things that haven't started yet. Well, you can easily identify what the work is. Or in another way, it could be that you're the head of one of these teams, or you lead one of these teams, or you are the team, and you can easily identify which tasks belong to you and your team. Another interesting thing about this view, always here, is, for example, putting conditional colors. So, for example, I like to have the notion of time in this Kanban view. So you can put rules here. That is, for example, here I put the date. If the date is relative to now, I want the background to be in yellow. This means that the tasks I need to do right now will now be highlighted in yellow. And as you can see now, business has to be the business model and marketing has to be the market analysis. And we can see that, for example, the marketing team is doing what they should be doing right now. And the business team, which has a task for now, well, it's still in the not started phase. Now then, you can see how this slightly more agile methodology, how you can customize it for your project, and how you can have different views in the same database. And well, to finish up, I'd like to show you one more way that you can manage your projects. And in this case, it would be if you work in sprints. So in my initial database, I added 2 new properties. Number 1 would be the sprint, to be able to indicate when this task is going to be done. And then we have the sprint status, where we could say at what point in the life of the sprint this ticket is. So we're going to go back to the bottom of our page. We're going to add a database, which will be in board view. And then right here, we're going to put, as we always do, our website launch as the database. In this particular case, I don't want it to be separated by the status of not started, in progress, and finished, but instead, I'd rather it be organized by the sprint status. So as you can see now, you have your tickets that are in the backlog, those in code review, those that are done, those in blocked by design, and ready to challenge. Another thing I'd like to do is to be able to divide the information by which sprint it's in. So I'll be able to make a subgroup by sprint. And here we can see, for example, in sprint 12, what's done, what's in code review, what's planned for sprint 13, and then what's planned for sprint 14. In this case, for example, I know I have 2 tickets that are ready for challenge. And then, for example, here, I have one that's still in my backlog. I hope this video has been useful for you to see how different databases can adapt to your project and not the other way around. So I'll see you in the next video. Hi, in this section, I want to show you how you can use Notion AI to be much more effective in your work. I'll share my screen with you. The first use case I'd like to show you is how you can use Notion AI to organize the notes from a meeting. So, for example, here I have a meeting page from July 18th, and so we're going to add an AI block. So here's the AI block, and this allows you to have a space where you'll be able to put the prompts for everything you need regarding the AI. For example, here I'd like to write something specific. I'll tell it and write a summary with the key points of this meeting. And when I click generate, here, as you can see, it provided me with the various different elements and important details of the meeting in a much more concise, much more organized, and much clearer way overall. Then let's say, for example, okay, now you'd rather have information about what the next steps are, who has to perform those actions. So for example, I'll ask for that, always using an AI block. And I'm going to say, create a new SQL database for your application with the actions to follow and with the person responsible. So now it updated my database with the actions, the people responsible, and the delivery date. So this is a first way of how you can use Notion AI. Another interesting way to see how you can use Notion AI with your meetings is to create a page directly so that Notion takes the notes for you. So we're going to create a new page, and in this case, I'm going to ask it to be meeting notes. Here you'll see that we're going to start with a database where you'll be able to put all your different meetings, and then within each of the meetings, you'll have the elements to be able to take notes directly. So we've arrived at this page where you'll see that all your different meetings are here. And it gives you a predefined option of how you can organize your meetings with the different properties. Let's create a new meeting. And so here, for example, let's simply say that this meeting is called meeting of progress. The projects named A and B respectively. So as you can see here, you have a block that allows you to take notes directly. This block is already predefined here, but you can also activate it simply by adding AI meeting notes here. So you can add this block to any of your pages. Well, now that you've seen how this block can be made, let's start the meeting. So for example, let's say I'm in a meeting, I just click start. So I'm going to simulate as if I were in a meeting. Hello, nice to meet you. Thank you very much for coming to this meeting. This is a meeting to establish the status between Project A and Project B. Project A is on track with the deadline. Project B is delayed. A financial contribution in the amount of 50,000 euros is absolutely necessary in order for us to remain on schedule and stay on our deadline. Also, we would like to take this opportunity to point out that we really need to add 3 more people. To address this project, we could specifically transfer resources from Project A to Project B. Let's say it was a meeting with many people. So I hit stop, and now it's taking down the notes here. And as you can see, Notion created a very clear summary of the meeting we just had. Another interesting way to use Notion AI is to create content. Let's say, for example, that during this meeting, important things were decided, and you'd like to write either a newsletter for your team or make an external announcement regarding the decisions that were made. So I'm going to show you how you can do that. Just like we did with these meeting notes, to first make a summary and then a database with the action items that need to be done. Here, you can make another block in which you can tell it, for example, write. This is a communication intended for the employees of the company, providing them with an explanation that is clear and easy to understand. The latest decisions. Please use a friendly and approachable tone in your speech. And positive. And now you can see that, for example, it wrote a message here that I can now easily transfer to my different communication channels about the situation. Another cool thing about Notion AI is that you can activate it in several ways. I've shown you how to create a page where you have a block for taking notes. I've also shown you the AI blocks that are integrated into a page. And now I want to show you some other ways that you can activate it. For example, in a super simple way, you can add an AI block just by hitting space. And here you can either write anything you want, or you can choose one of the options here. Whether it's writing a to-do list, writing a summary like we just did, but in the same way, you can ask it questions, or you can ask it to write something for you. For example, in this case, I can ask it, make a to-do list based on what it sees above. And then here you tell it if you like it or not, if it adds it, or if it just tries again. You can also use Notion to translate texts. For example, I like this email, but now I want to translate it into English. So I'm going to add an AI block in, which I'm going to ask it, translate the email into English. That's right above. And here you can see that it translated it for me, and I can send it in English too. Another interesting way to work with Notion AI is to use its assistant. So you have it down here, and it lets you navigate not only the page you're on, but rather your entire workspace. So, for example, I can ask it, search for a detailed page online that provides comprehensive information about the famous Louvre Museum. And it's going to search through everything to find a page that matches my question. And here you can see that it found 9 results. And for example, here's the page that catches my eye and the one I was looking for. So I can click on it, and I have my Louvre Museum page. Well, there you have it, Notion. You can also use it as an assistant. It'll be very useful for your day-to-day and to optimize your work. Did you know that you can use Notion to create a website without needing to write even a single line of code? For personal branding, for a blog, or for a shared database, making your website with Notion is an excellent option, and I'll show you how you can do it step by step. You might be wondering why use Notion to create your own website when there are so many platforms. Well, number 1, it's super easy and fast. 2, it's ideal for creating a personal blog, for branding, or for a shared database. You can integrate your social networks and optimize the SEO, and it's totally customizable. For example, I created this website to be able to digitize my resume so I don't have to give a simple PDF every time I go to an interview, but rather they can see all my experiences directly on the website. So, for example, here I have a bit more space and freedom to be able to explain who I am and share everything I've done, starting with a brief description, my studies, and what I've done in terms of my career, the different positions I've held, and then also integrating videos from LinkedIn and YouTube, and they can easily find me on LinkedIn. Well, as always, we'll start with a blank page where we're going to add your name. Then we're going to add an icon. I'm going to use an image that I already have. And we're going to add a cover image. Perfect. Now we're going to we'll start with a description of me, who I am, what I'm looking for, and what I like to do. So we add this. Then I'm going to talk about my studies. And I'm also going to talk about my career. Well, perfect. Now we have all the texts. I talked a bit about my introduction, my studies, and what I've done in my career. And now I'd like to add a YouTube video where I have an interview and explain what I do. So, for example, I'm going to take this video. I'm going to copy it. And now we're going to add it, and I'm going to say it's a video that I want to embed. In the same way, I'd like to include a link for my LinkedIn profile. So we're going to add it right here. And now I'd like to add a couple more images. So for example, I'm going to drag this image and put it right next to my description. Well, now we have this page that I'm satisfied with and that I'd like to publish. So I'm going to show you how that's done. So here, if we click share, you have the publish button where this is going to turn it into a website. If I click publish, here you can see that this website is already live. And here you have the option to use the subdomain that you want. I have these two, but you also have the option to create new subdomains. So for example, if I click on new domain, there are 2 options. Either you can connect one that you already have or use one that is on notion.site. I'm going to do that. And so here you can write, for example, what you'd like to have as a domain name. Let's say that I'm going to do Rebecca Ramos. .notion.site. Unfortunately, this particular one is already taken at the moment, but let's just say, for example, that you wanted to use it. One with a number behind it is available. So for example, this will be Rebecca Ramos. 8735.notion.site. And as you can see, it's live. So if we go back here, I can decide to have this page on Rebecca Ramos 8735.notion.site. Now I'm going to show you how you can activate SEO on this page. In a super easy way, you just have search engine indexing here, which is set to off. So we're going to activate it. As you can see, for example, here, when searching on Google, I'm going to have as a description studies, and I don't really like that very much. So what I'm going to do is try to put in a few more relevant keywords to improve the results. So for example, I'll add product owner, experience, and perhaps some other related terms that might help refine the search and make it more accurate. So now I have Rebecca Ramos, which is a Notion site, and that I'm a product owner, 7 years of experience, fluent in 3 languages. And I'm going to click Save. Now you can simply share it via social media, for example, or you can embed it on another site. And now we can see how this website looks. Online, so as you can see, your URL is rebeccaramos8735.notion.site, and now you have your description, your studies, and what you've been doing lately. And finally, with your call to action of get in contact with me. I hope you liked this video, and I hope this course has been very useful for everything you're going to use Notion for. Now it's up to you. Good luck with all your projects. Goodbye.